Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on August 15th, 2023 at approximately 4:25 p.m. PST. Now, I've returned to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life, and the philosophies of life I talk about are the exact same philosophies I guide my day-to-day movements by. So this is not a question, here's a couple of ideas that may work for you. These are methods that have been used not only by myself, but by literally thousands of clients over the last 50 years of my life. And yes, I did start this kind of work when I was only 10 years old. That's when it became public knowledge. And that's a story unto itself. But today we are going to be talking about, at least we're going to start talking about resurrection and reincarnation, the difference and just exactly how that all comes into play. But before we get into that, let's get through the first part of this. Get that out of my eyesight so I can actually see it. We have, right off the bat, we have Caffeine Eclipse is in with the gold. And yes, I did catch your question there, Caffeine. And then we have Chad Smith in with the silver. And Chad, the fact that you are in with the silver, this is the link to Chad's line, to Chad's live stream. Okay. So when you get the opportunity, people, do drop by his do follow this link and take a look at what he has to say. If he says, if what he says you like, give him a thumbs up, do subscribe to the channel and share the daylights out of it, if you'll be so kind as to do so. Then we have Football in with the bronze, and Shadow and Sun is in with the honorable mention. Whoop, that is wrong. Actually, no, that's not wrong. He is in with honorable mention. But what I was referring to being wrong was I hit the wrong link. This is the link to Shadow's site. So again, drop in, give him a listen. If you like what he has to say, do give him a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Now, yes, I mentioned I was going to talk about resurrection and reincarnation. Now, with this in mind, I got asked a question right off the bat before I even got into the room. And what it is Caffeine came right out and asked, and I'm before I answer this, okay, again, if you've got a question, do me a favor, put the question in all caps. Okay, or at least partial caps or that wavy sign, that wavy icon, so that I can actually find the questions. But Caffeine Eclipse asked, what galactic society did you come from previously? Now, of course, in case you haven't read up above, like I put it, how far back are you seeking, or more to the point, how recently? Now, my last galactic society, okay, it's a little hard because the last one before I took on a human form, okay, now I took on a human form human form is the wrong term for it. I took on a corporeal form literally at the construction of Earth. Okay, as far as that goes, the last species that I was before I took on a corporeal form was a Yldrbac. Okay, now it's a long drawn out story how this all came about, but the answer to the other part of that question, okay, is number one, am I a member of the Galactic Consortium? Little hard to become a member of it. I'm only one individual. Okay, and Galactic Consortium members happen to be entire planetary species. Okay, but have I known about the Galactic Consortium? Absolutely. Frankly, I knew about them before they were formed. But the thing we have to remember is that when you're looking, even when we're looking at reincarnation, resurrection, whatever, the reality is the form you were and that you pay most attention to has got to be the one you're currently operating in. Okay. Therefore, do I have a human form? Certainly. Now, I love the way that Daniel Brinkley put it. Okay, where he said we are all spiritual beings and experiencing a physical existence or a human existence. Okay, with this in mind, I've been around a very long time. This lifetime, yeah, I just turned 60 this year. My memories, on the other hand, date a heck of a sight further back. Now, before anybody goes there, am I going to prove anything? Not a prayer. I'm not even going to make the effort to try and explain it. Because the reality is that I don't have a way of putting it in terms that are going to make sense. Not that I'm aware of anyway. Okay. Now, I'm looking at this and Caffeine goes, if you haven't figured it out, I'm from outer space. It's not like your backwater. It's not like your backwater. Planet find mine. Problem with punctuation there, and I'm not complaining about that. I just read that really poorly the way it is. But no, the reality is I have referred to Earth as a backwater mudball for literally my entire physical life, this lifetime. Now it was funny, I spent the better portion of my life striving to figure out how to fit into this planet, into this world. And it turned out, somebody turned around and looked at me and went, why are you so intent on that now? And they said, you've never striven to fit in before. Why now? Well, the why now is because every other method I've worked hasn't worked. Every other method I've used hasn't worked. So I figured, what the heck, let's try a new one. Now we have, football. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. I have been trying to figure out, and due to the fact I'm partially colorblind, I'm sure of it. I absolutely rely on input from people like you to say whether a color suits me. Okay. So yeah, I absolutely appreciate that. Cowie, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Not a problem there, Chad. Where are we going here? Yeah, the way I figure it, guys, if you're willing to share your time with me and you've got a YouTube stream, absolutely, I'm going to do my best to share that in your favor. Now, I'm not entirely certain what. Okay, let me see what's going on here. Okay. See, I'm looking at what's being written in the chat room here. And I'm not quite certain what you're getting at there, Caffeine. Yeah, Shadow's going, not me. This is my first time around. I'm one and done. This place bored the heck out of me. I'm ready to explore other worlds. Well, here's the neat part there. Absolutely not everybody is here. I did something a little strange when I got here. So I will be here and reincarnating over the next several, literally billion years. What form I'm going to take all the way down the road, I don't know. I do know what my next lifetime is going to look like because I'm designing it now. And like I said, like I mentioned before, this whole idea of a soul contract the contract that's being made is literally an issue of what you desire to gain wisdom around. That's your call before you get here. We are not talking about a physical choice, about a cognitive choice based on human understanding. Now, the reality is, could I look through comments? Well, I don't know if it's very patient. The thing is, I made a very good friend with Yldrbac, with this particular planet. Okay, now she is Gaborn. There's no question there. No question from my end. Can I prove it? Not a prayer. Okay, and primarily, as it was put to me one day, I can explain what I'm looking at. I cannot understand it for you. Absolutely, Nathan. Oh, great. Nathan goes, been busy tonight. By myself, no co-workers now. Nathan, we are still going to be around for the next couple hours. Do your best to keep yourself out of trouble. And absolutely all the best tonight. But Shadow, you are right. Compliments absolutely can move mountains. They can alter people's perception in a real hurry. I will compliment people when they're doing something right. Okay. Where are we? Go back up here. See, there's something that I'm going to point out here, football, and I would agree wholeheartedly with the idea that you don't give half-baked compliments. You won't compliment somebody just to, if you will, get points or get ahead. Okay, but a compliment is a whole different ball game than a manipulation. But that being said, like I've always told people, hey, Black Dragon, how you doing? Glad you could join us. As I've always told people, I look at everybody equally. The reason for that is because of the fact I found out a few things over my lifetimes, and I call it lifetimes. No, honestly, football, it really isn't that good of a skill. Then when I talk about lifetimes, I'm referring to corporeal form. I'm not talking about the age of my soul. That's a whole different ball game and goes way back further than most people will even contemplate. But that being said, okay, when we look at resurrection, let's cover that first. Okay, because everybody says people are resurrected. Well, the reality of it is this. If your body's physical functions pass below the level that the current society can comprehend or can register, they consider you dead. Okay, if you wake up still in the same body, whether it's days, weeks, or years later, if you're still in the same body, they call it a resurrection. Okay, if you die and come back with memories from a past life, they call it reincarnation. That ultimately is the difference. The important factor that we have to look at here. Okay. The funny thing that just going back there, Cowie, you just said you're very patient to want to spend a couple of billion years around here. I've already been here more than 5 billion. More than 5 billion. Okay. So another 5 isn't going to matter. But do understand, I'm not talking about something in terms of billions of years, which is what humans look at, which is understandable. If all you remember is a lifespan that's 80 years long, then absolutely you're going to be looking at a lifespan of billions as way too, a lifetime of billions as being way too long. Okay, but resurrection itself is a fascinating thing, because essentially what it means is that you died, your life signs dropped below current science's ability to register. Okay, this is why many people really have looked at things in an odd setup. Now, this is documented, in the Bible quite consistently. Okay, and not just with one person, but with many. And there have been many times in modern society where somebody was okay. I will absolutely get to that, Cowie. Well, there we are. Humans many times have been diagnosed dead, been shipped off to a morgue, been shipped off to a gravesite, and then woke up. By definition of resurrection, and I do understand some of you that have a very strong religious bend to you will see this as sacrilege. I'm looking at the scientific or the logical comparison. Okay, if you die, so your life signs drop below recognizable or below trackable, and then you come back, they call it resurrection. Okay, when that happens, okay, all of a sudden they look at you going, oh, there's something really special about you. Now, the fact of the matter is, I do not see myself as anything better or more special than you. Not than anybody out there. Okay, but I will tell you, regardless of my past, okay, corporeally speaking, I was born on Earth. My parents on Earth are human, and that is the form I'm looking at. Now, I've had this discussion with other people, okay, that have said they personally are from outer space. Well, this is wonderful, and I have no question at all that many people that go that direction, where the issue is you remember your past life so strongly that you still don't feel like you fit here. Okay, and sometimes this works well, but I will tell you that it does cause complications. I've seen that belief structure destroy friendships and destroy relationships. Now, yes, I am letting things scroll down here, while I'm talking, and hopefully this means I'll be able to catch up to different questions that have come up. Football, it shows here that a little bit ago you made the comment that you wish you could manipulate people. Well, every individual that you deal with, okay, everyone, no matter what you're doing, is now manipulation. People kind of take as a negative, but when you ask somebody for something, and you use polite words, you go, can I please have such and such? Okay, in its strictest form. And before I put my foot in my mouth, I'm going to open up one little viable option here. Okay, let's use that one. And let us see. Here we go. Now, I just called it up. And according to the Oxford Dictionary on the internet, manipulation is a lot. Where are we here? I love that. Let's try that. What is manipulation? I'm reading straight off the net. Manipulation is the exercise of human influence over others. Now, the thing is, it says the harmful way, but realistically, I'm holding on to this pen. The other idea of manipulation, move it. I'm manipulating the pen. You can manipulate people by encouraging them to step up and take control of their own life by simply pointing out a positive picture. Okay, this is a positive way of using manipulation. Every single individual born has that capacity. Okay. Okay, I will come now. Black Dragon, where are we here? Cowie, you asked, isn't time a human construct? No. Time is an accepted construct amongst all beings. And do understand, they don't all look at the same time frame. Point in fact, and I call it fact, because when I did research about 20 years ago, I discovered 6 calendars in existence on today's world. Okay. Now, these are different in different nationalities, different parts of the world, tracking time differently. But time is a relative construct. But it came into existence way before mankind ever did. Okay. Now, with that in mind, because of the fact that you're dealing with different time frame, different time tracking, the trick to it is to come to an understanding between two people what that time frame is. Okay. For instance, when I had problems when I was growing up, or not when I was growing up, when I was a young adult, my parents lived in a different city. Okay. And I tell my parents, I'll be down next Friday to visit. Problem, I don't track time. And Mom told me one day, she goes, Dad and I had to get used to the idea that when you said next Friday, it didn't always mean right then. There may be 4 or 5 Fridays in between. And for me, this was just normal. It wasn't trying to manipulate anything. It wasn't trying to, shirk the idea of going down. I literally didn't track time. And still don't, by the way. Okay, so, no, ETs itself, ETs themselves, and I'm just going to go non-humans, still utilize time in the same fashion. But they have their own ways of counting it. Okay, let's face it, a cicada does not calculate time like you do. A cicada will go dormant for 17 human years before being born to live one day and then die. To them, that's life. But they don't count it as every 17 years. They count it as, I wake up, I've got this amount of time to live. Humans are born, you've got this amount of time to live. And it does vary, you'll live a little longer. Okay, it is not a cut and dried, you hit this time and you're dead. Okay. This is true, caffeine. Caffeine's just saying everyone thinks resurrection is physical, at least in your world anyways. Yeah, no, I understood where you went with that, Cowie. The reality of it is that off-worlders, they still gauge time based on their interaction. Now understand, races that don't have essentially a death point do not look at death in the same way. Okay, you look at Laborians. They're at one of their days. Now they still live what they consider about 35 years. The problem is each one of their days, is literally 1,000 human years. So you're looking at 1 year of theirs being 365,000 days, or 365,000 years, Terran-wise. Okay, but that's 1 year. So when you take that, let me go 365,000, which is 1 year, you multiply that by 35. The average Laborian will live in Terran years 12,775,000 years. These guys have been around for a while. Okay, and that's just the reality of it. So I mean, we are looking at that. And caffeine, this is where we have a real major complication. Okay, Fourth dimension, everything you see in this reality, from everything I've come to understand, whether it is physical, whether it is astral, whether it's non-corporeal, doesn't matter. If you can register it in this world, ever, it is third dimensional. But I am strongly convinced much more and more, okay, that we are talking vibratory rates. Now, if something in the third dimension vibrates fast enough, it will pass through another physical object, thereby appearing like, number one, it'll move so fast you never see it. But because of the different vibratory rate, it can pass through a solid object and you won't know about it. Net result, you can start, somebody that knows how to vibrate faster will start on one side of a wall, approach the wall, and appear to come out the other side. What they're actually doing is they're still traveling the same speed. Okay, but, and like I said, there's a lot of different viewpoints, which can get very complicated. Okay. Very much caffeine. And very much like just moving the file in a folder on the computer. All you're doing is altering, you're literally picking it up. It's still there, but you're giving it a different reference point. Now, Shadow is asking, how do you console yourself with the thought then that your parents are not really your parents and you might someday be their parent? Well, first of all, we have to look at it this way. From a human construct standpoint, which is the physical life I've got right now, okay, I look at it going, number one, my physical parents are my physical parents. The fact they're both deceased now is beside the point. Okay, but I know for an absolute certainty that when I came into this physical incarnation, I remember the birth. Okay, and I mean literally, I remember physically being born. You cannot get much more of a direct viewpoint on that one. Not that I'm aware of, anyway. So I mean, from that standpoint, and as far as my being their parents later, we may decide to do that. I've had a lot of friends, like a lot of my current friends, not my parents and not my family members, but a lot of my current friends and people I know, I literally burnt at the stake 400 years ago. I was good at my job. Not nice, but I was good at it. Okay. Now I'm just looking to see what. Well, that is very true, caffeine. A two-dimensional item has no comprehension of a third dimension. In all fairness, a third-dimensional person has no functional comprehension of two-dimensional. We represent two-dimensional as writing on a paper. Okay, the paper is listed as two-dimensional. What you see here is described as two-dimensional, but the reality is this is still three-dimensional. Okay, but you find ways of representing it for conversation purposes. Okay, and what ends up happening when we're looking at resurrection, it is not a question of all of a sudden you're something different than you were, but people, because they don't understand the way it works, see the person walking out of the morgue in a different light, or out of the tomb, or off the table where they had died. The theory is when your heart stops, when it can no longer be registered, then you're dead. That's supposed to be where it ends. Not quite the way it does, but see, when people talk about different dimensions, and this is why I say we may have a barrier problem here. Now, I was showing way, way, way back the existence of 12 dimensions. Okay. Now, in all fairness, because I haven't been over to them, okay, but in all fairness, we may be looking at 12 different renditions, all individually different, but you don't jump between them. Okay, as a matter of fact, you chose to come into this one. Okay, in an odd sense. And that's a whole lot more complicated. We know there are other things out there. The fact you know they're out there doesn't mean that you're going to get there. I will tell you this. The idea of mankind, ascending to the fifth dimension isn't going to happen. Not the way people are thinking. Now, reincarnation is a whole different ballgame. See, when you're talking about reincarnation, what you end up with is your physical body dies, kind of like a vehicle. You've got a car or a bike or whatever, and your vehicle dies. You may wander around for a little bit until you find another vehicle you like. Then you pick up a new vehicle. You reincarnate your mobility factor, but you don't forget what you did the last lifetime. Okay, and with that in mind, you now live on with that new car. Reincarnation works that way. You pick a new body to work with, and you operate inside its restrictions. This is just the way that side of it works. But we have to realize that in order to function in this world, okay, I ran into a chap a while ago that said he listed off the race he was, etc., etc. And as I told him, because what he was doing was going, I'm not human, therefore, I can do all these other things. The reality is, you take a look at the human genome in the body you're in, compare what you're in to what you're capable of. This will tell you what your vehicle is, not what your soul is. Now, have I always, have I been here for a while? Certainly. Can I prove it? Not a prayer. But I will tell you, I've seen this same pattern over the years, and we use that term really as an extreme understatement. Okay. Where people have followed this same line of reasoning, and it virtually always ends in the same fashion. But the real catch to it is you look at everybody you know, okay, everybody you interact with, very necessary to treat them the exact same way you personally desire to be treated. Okay, this is just the reality of it. At least the reality as far as I've come to understand. Now, do people wake up after a long period of time? Certainly. If you live in England, okay, there are incredible reports, and I suspect in other parts of the rest of the world. I just happen to know England for a certainty, where the ancient grave sites, they took to hanging a bell at each of the new tombstones. The reason for that was because they came to understand that everybody pronounced dead wasn't necessarily dead. Okay, so they put the bell there. So if you woke up, you could take hold of that bell and you could ring it and they'd dig you up as fast as they could. Okay, this didn't always work. This is why when people started digging up graves and they'd turn a grave over and they'd find, nail marks in the bottoms of the coffin lid, it was because the person was buried alive. Eventually they died of exhaustion or starvation or dehydration. Lousy way to die. Okay. The idea of the whole 9 yards of that created its own complications. Now, have I always been human since I came to this planet? No. Okay. I have spent lifetimes in many different forms. But I've always come back to, I've spent most of my time in a corporeal form, in human form, simply because of the fact I gave my word to a young lady at the time. and told her I would do what I could to help her. Okay, and I made a bond with her. Okay, her being Esau, who you call Earth. You may call her Gaia, Mother Nature, Mother Earth. There's any number of things. Okay, right now there's no question she's ticked. Okay, because humans who are supposed to be the caretakers have not been doing their job effectively. But for me, I don't worry about the next lifetime. I'll worry about my next lifetime, as it were, this lifetime when I go to come in while I'm between being, let's try English. I'll concern myself with next lifetime as far as whether or not I become the parent of a parent or the parent of a grandparent or whatever it is. I'll sort all of that out after I die this lifetime. From my perspective, it's very simple. Okay, if we're talking about resurrection, we have to realize it's based on whether or not somebody can register your life signs. It's got little to do with you, it's got to do with the terminology regarding somebody that has clinically passed away and then restarted their system. Reincarnation is when you actually change bodies. Okay, but again, it's accepted terminology, as it were. Now, does this make anybody any better? Not in the slightest. Okay, and like I said, with those that are remembering your past life in your past incarnation, and you're remembering it more strongly than what you're connecting to Earth, two big factors. One, I still, in spite of the fact that I live my life the way I do, I still do not relate to the people of this planet. Okay, I understand what you're going through, and this is why I've decided to step out of the shadows. Okay, I understand what you're going through. I understand where it all began, why it all began. Do I buy into a lot of it? No, but I do have to abide by what's going on. Okay, I mean, that's just the reality behind that one. Now the fact of the matter is, do I know everything? Not a snowball's prayer. I literally know barely just enough to know I don't know enough. And as the saying goes, the more I know, the less I know. But what I do know for a certainty is who I am, how long I've been here, and what my job is. What I actually came to do. And yes, I've been shirking my responsibilities badly. Okay, I was supposed to make a much bigger impact on the powers that be, on the governments at the time, instead of turning around and taking my abilities as a warlock, a male witch, working for the government, instead of taking my time to correct their way of thinking and pushing that issue. I took advantage of the situation and went, okay, I'm going to protect the witches that are simply trying to heal people, trying to heal the animals, turning to herbalism to heal the planet. I'm going to take those people and protect them by finding them innocent, and then protect them further by literally accusing the accuser of being the witch. Net result, the accuser gets killed. Nobody wants to own a property that was occupied by witches, so I could buy it for a song. Okay, net result, I ended up with one heck of a huge real estate empire that I just kept moving the if you will, the good witches onto that property to make sure that they were taken care of, that they were saved. Okay, not necessarily the most magnanimous approach, but it worked like a charm. But frankly, does this make me better than anybody? No. different, certainly. And the one thing you have to remember, I've got new ones. I haven't gone out and bought any new ones yet, but I am certainly working on a few. And Chad, I am going to just make a note of that. Whoop, would you mind working? Today is Tuesday, I hope. Must have been Tuesday. Yep. So what I'm going to do, I'm just making a note here. To bring some of the new figures I've been really working on to show you and to show you guys tomorrow. Now, what do we got? Black Dragon, where are we here? I do think, yeah, I'm just noticing Chad's mention. Oh, there you are. Yeah, Black Dragon's going, I'm just a protector. I show up where I'm needed. Absolutely. And, the reality of it is there's a lot of people that say this is what I'm doing. And they're great at talking. In your case, Black, I know what you're up to there. The fact of the matter is it takes all kinds of people on this planet. I don't see any of them as any more important or any more valuable than the next. Okay, I do see some that I know they've gone down the wrong path. The reality is, for me, this is a very long time coming. But we have to realize the biggest difference between resurrection, okay, and this includes, and yes, I know this is going to upset somebody, this includes the idea of the most famous resurrection available. It boils down to he wasn't as dead as what you might have thought. Doesn't change the value of everything he did, everything he stood for, everything he talked about. It's too bad that people are not following, even the ones that claim they're following that individual, are not following his teachings. Okay, and you know what I'm referring to there, because that was the individual that came and said, be nice to each other. Love your neighbor as I love you. In other words, do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Okay, energy out, energy in. But the fact of the matter is, most people following, and I'll use the term following his guidelines, to say the least, have manipulated them to their own good. But do I remember things differently than other people? Absolutely. Like I said, we've got resurrection, which is one thing. Reincarnation is what gets everybody with these past life memories. Okay, is the fact that you've had the memory before. You lived that life. I am really curious why my eyesight is screwy, but I'll work with it. The thing we really have to focus on is the idea that we can actually work together. Now, the people in this room are a living example of that. Okay, you're a living example that people around the world from virtually every walk of life can absolutely work together, can absolutely find some support. Now, I am curious about something here. I don't know if I've got anything set there. I do not. I was just looking to see if I had any topic actually set. Actually, I think that's what we'll do for tomorrow. Okay. I was just looking at this going, I haven't got a topic sorted around, so I'm going to do a simple one for you there, Chad. Not only am I going to bring the new figures up, but I will look at what I'm actually seeing them for. We're talking tomorrow. And this is what it really boils down to, bringing your creative side to life. Okay, I'm going to show you how I'm doing it, how I'm doing the writing by bringing the figures up and going, okay, this is literally what these figures are representing in these books. Now, because I've been looking at building a publishing company and what have you, I was told I've got to focus somewhere. I'm taking the whole 9 yards. Okay, but we're going to do it using science fiction, science fantasy as a backdrop, okay, as a focal point. Because the reality is, let's face it, this is where I put a lot of my time. It's where I put a lot of my effort. The figurines themselves are simply characters that I'm working on, okay, and I will, when I'm showing them to you, understand the figures themselves. I may be using figures you recognize, but as in the old Dragnet series, I'm changing the names, okay, in order to protect the innocent. Not that a monster even needs protecting, but monsters are simply people that work beyond what humans consider civilized. And I'm telling you, what I'm looking at right now, when we're talking about reincarnation, remember what I said about people don't forget their way before, like when they get a new vehicle? This is why so many people, when you focus on the negative, turns around and brings back more negative to the world. Or more to the point, simply propagates more. Somebody that resurrects, that is resurrected, they're taking everything they knew about themselves. And I will tell you, when you get that close to death, when your senses drop that low, or when your life signs drop that low, there is a change in the way that you see the world. And this can result in very different attitudes when they resurface. However, if you were content with the way you were living your life before, like we take Yeshua for example. Yeshua, when he died and was resurrected, he already was very content with his attitude. When he looked back over what he had done with his life, he was quite content with the way he lived. Now we take a look at another gentleman by the name of Daniel Brinkley. Okay, now he came to fame back in the early 80s, I think. As a matter of fact, no, came to light in the late 80s, but he was somebody that really caught our attention. My eldest son is actually named, and we grabbed my eldest son's name, was pulled from Daniel Brinkley's, simply because of the fact that it was a different name. There's a long story before and beyond it. But the important factor, if you read the story of Daniel Brinkley, when he was younger, before he died, he was an absolute, let's just say, not nice. Okay, he would beat up people just because they were there. Once he was struck with lightning and came back, he was a spiritual guy. He couldn't even raise his fist to somebody in anger. Okay, because what happens when you die, when you have that NDE, that near-death experience, you literally get shown your entire life all in the blink of an eye. But what they don't tell you is that when that happens, when that happens, you experience every negative thing you did to every individual all at the same time. You also simultaneously experience all the positive things you did to people or for people at the same time. Now, if you've spent the majority of your life being a dipstick, okay, and you end up dead and going through it, going through your life What happened with Daniel Brinkley is he was such a tyrant before he died that he looked at it and goes, I can't carry on living like this. And he wakes up doing, he still has all his memories. He's not a new person, but he's got an adjusted outlook. The Christmas movie Scrooge does exactly the same thing. Okay, guy goes to sleep, has a dream that he's died. In this case, it can be argued that he did. Okay, comes back to the world, resurrected, and goes, I can't continue being an absolute idiot. I've got to start dealing with people. This is the same thing that happens across the board. Okay, and what we have to realize is it's up to you. You don't have to die to make this decision. Okay, you can sit here and go, I'm no longer content with the way my world is working. Therefore, I'm going to find a way to make it change. Now, again, guys, if you've got a question, even if it's not on topic, absolutely come right out and ask, but do put it in all caps so that I can at least find the thing. Okay, when we are talking about a resurrection, all that has to happen, they call it a rebirth. There are some religions, and I'll be very specific on this one. The born again Christians are Christians that have lost their way and due to circumstance finally found a way back to the church, albeit under a different label. Okay, but what they've done is they've looked at their life and gone, there's something missing. I'm going to go back because I feel it's God that's missing. Therefore, I'm going to go back. Okay, and I don't have a problem with that. As a matter of fact, I absolutely encourage you to do so. Okay, but the first thing we have to realize is that first and foremost, the idea, are there hybrids? Are there off-worlders living on this planet? The answer is yes. But does that mean that the individuals that fall into that category are any more special than, if you will, run-of-the-mill humans? Not at all. I've heard conversations from people from all walks of life that I really sit there going, not what were you thinking, but just simply, were you thinking? Okay, I know of one gentleman that absolutely claimed that he was from another world, that he was not from another world. He, not as in he had a past life there, but he had literally said this body was not human. Okay, and unfortunately it created a massive problem, as in their relationship ended up ending. Las Vegas, how you doing? Glad you could join us. So when we are talking about resurrection, we are talking about simply having your life signs drop below trackable levels by modern society and then having them restart. That is not the same as reincarnation. But they are, neither one is any less, if you will, thought-provoking than the other. Now I'm looking at this, and I've been racking my brain here, trying to figure out, striving to figure out, okay, what is it that people are really looking for? Okay, because I see chat rooms that are running at 100, 150 people in the room all at the same time, which is great. And from my standpoint, it's actually even better now that I've figured out how to stop it from scrolling so I can get ahead of the game. But it does require 2 monitors for me to do that. But we have to realize you don't have to die to reinvent yourself. Okay, you can absolutely look at the way your world is and go, I'm not happy with what's going on, so I'm going to modify it. Okay, One of the things that I will tell you is once you make a decision that you're going to change the way your life is going, given that you made the decision for you, you have the capacity right there to change your life. And yes, I am quite willing to turn the lights on. Okay, now let me just see here. I got a lot of work to do for tomorrow, but I don't think you were invited. So I'm looking at this. Okay, yes, I'm clearing my table because one thing that I am aiming for is I'm standing over here. I've got to get my table cleared so that I can actually function. And one of the biggest things we have to realize, one of the biggest things we have to realize is this. Do you like the way your world is right now? Do you like the amount of separation going on in this world? Okay, if the answer is yes, then more power to you. Personally, not impressed. The number of people I see hurting each other in the name of love, in the name of camaraderie or of support, is absolutely bizarre. It's absolutely twisted in my eyes. That's just the reality behind it. And now what I'm looking at is where do we go from here? Now, I'm going to ask and I'm dead serious about this. I'm dead serious about this, Caffeine. You said you're from outer space. Did you actually, in your memory, did you come from a planet or were you just in outer space? Or more to the point, did you come from a different civilization? And yes, that's not meant to be any sort of, that's not meant to be any kind of insult or anything. Okay, it is literally a question that says, okay, people are telling me they're from this place, that place. I'm curious where your memory brings you from. Okay. And that's just saying what we got here. Black Dragon, I thought you already did that. Now, we had this discussion the other day, I'm sure of it. And like I said, but you do remind me, I gotta go get some more. I will sit down for a single meal and eat a complete package, a complete pound of bacon. And that's the end of the meal. I thought you were already like that. That's just terrible. You're not living up. Now, of course, the real question is, are you going to change into a being that just eats bacon, or are you looking at something that eats bacon on the fly? Okay. Now, the reality of it from my standpoint is you design the world you desire to live in, but start now on this planet, which is where you happen to be. I'm laying odds, and I know a few people that have said, I'm not from here, I'm not from this planet, right? I've had a couple that have literally said, they've told me exactly what they were, and yet could not do anything beyond what a human can. Ferret, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Hopefully it's a little cooler there than what it is here. Look in here, what have I got? We are currently still sitting at 38. And at 38, we are looking at, let's see. Well, at 36, you're looking at 5. We're looking at, 36, you're looking at, divide by 5, multiply by 9. So you're looking at 7, 63, 93, 95. We're sitting at just shy of 100 degrees. So I'm hoping it's cooler. Yeah, we're sitting in. Oh. Ferret goes, yikes, I thought 27 was hot. Well, the reality is, Ferret, on the island, 27 is murder. It's closer to 35, maybe even as high as 40. Okay. See, if you do the same, if you take 27, divide by 9 is 3, or divide by 5 is 5.5, just about. Multiplied by 9 is 50, plus 32 is 82. If you take it the other way, 27 is 54, plus 32 is 86. So, you are looking in the 80s. Yeah, we're seeing right now, we're just starting to come down. We were at 38, we're now down to 37. So, yeah, little warm. Well, whatever you do there, Black Dragon, do not become a vegan. Do not become a vegan. Because you're not going to have a good time and you'll have less fun as a vegetarian. I look at the world this way. I'm not content with the way my life is. I'm not content with the shape my body's in. So I'm working on it. As a matter of fact, for likely the first time in over a decade, I've actually gone out and bought actual physical fruit from the market. Didn't go out to the farm. Sorry, got this funny little problem about leaving my house and going to a place I'm totally lost at. Whole world, no. And we know this, Ferret's just asking, is the whole world burning up? The answer is no. You go to the middle of the Pacific Ocean, it's not on fire. Okay, but I will tell you, Itza is ticked. And yes, there's fires all over the place. This is her response to a great deal of negativity that mankind is generating. A lot of the reason it seems worse, though, Ferret, is because what's happening here is this. A fire breaks out over here. Okay. And you've got this fire, and everybody turns the cameras and goes, there's the fire. Over here on this side of the meadow, there's a family of deer running around with little bunny hopping in the grass beside them. Nobody's looking at this. All the attention is going to the negative, to the fear base. This is where the problem is. Now, how, pray tell, did you pull that off, Black? Oh, yeah, but Ferret, if you listen to the news about Maui, you gotta remember, Maui is on a volcano. Okay, now what humans call a call an extinct volcano is overstated. I will not debate they haven't gone off for a while, but it's still a volcano, and even if it hasn't been used for a while, is still an adequate venting place. So it's going to continue doing that. And the way to bring it back under control, oddly enough, is for people to start treating people, like potential allies, instead of potential adversaries. It's this kind of energy pattern that's got to be corrected. Or at least if you want the world to continue on in a more functional fashion. That's the funny thing. There are two types of chemtrails going out there. And yes, humans are responsible for one set. What you're not aware of, okay, as much as humans are responsible for a definitive set of negatively oriented chemtrails. Absolutely. But you'll notice the chemtrails go this way and this way. What you're not necessarily aware of is these, and it might not be these, it might be these, but one direction is what humans are doing. The other direction is what off-worlders are doing to protect the planet. They're putting out they're putting out a counter agent. And rest assured, the off-worlders are better at it. Oh yeah, chemtrails have definitely been proven to be a fact. It has been proven they're being used. They have been for centuries. Okay, I mean, you think about it. When you're talking about things like Agent Orange, we are talking about chemicals that mankind used on its own people. Not the brightest choice in the world, but are chemtrails real? Chemtrails real? Absolutely. Are they going to be the end of the world? No. Mankind's negativity will do that all for it. Black's going, I have a high metabolism, so my body doesn't make fat to hold my body heat. You know, most of my metabolism goes towards healing, which is why I don't get ill. I mean, yeah, my heart stops, my lungs stop, my right leg quits, but that's because of a glitch up here. Okay. Now, do I remember a lot of my past lives? Do I remember waking up in I remember waking up in a tomb and walking out of it. Okay, years ago. I remember walking out of the morgue, which, by the way, that was funny in heck. And I can't tell you the number of times that they tried to behead me and it didn't work out. But you got to remember something about being beheaded with a guillotine. There was a standing rule. If when they pulled the rope, if the guillotine did not come all the way down, it was considered an act of God, and you were immediately absolved of all crimes. Okay, so when I say I survived the guillotine, I'm not kidding. Not quite so lucky with the first time they took my hand. That was not a lifetime altogether. Although I did get even. And I'll tell you, they were not happy with me getting even. But again, when we're talking about resurrection, ultimately, if you look at the clinical side of it, if you've had an ND, if you died and came back, that's resurrection at its simplest. Okay, sometimes it'll take a little longer. Some people drop into a coma so deep that the doctors can't they can't register life signs. Net result, when the body kicks back open, you're dealing with a modern day resurrection. This happens way more frequently than people think. Okay, that's just the reality behind things. Now, I do have an odd question for you. Like I said, I figured out what I'm doing tomorrow. That's the easy part. We're going to take a look at really where which figures are being used for which characters. Now, some of them, I'm going to ask a bizarre question here. Where are we? Ouch. There it is. Okay, I'm going to go grab something here. I will be right back. Just because it dawned on me a question that I've got to ask. Okay. Love you. I brought these down for a real simple reason. Okay. Now, figured what the heck. What have we got here? I walked out and away I go. Now, like I said, when we're dealing with creating your world, it literally boils down to this. If you've had a near-death experience, the odds are you've died, you've ended up being what is literally reincarnated or literally resurrection. Your body's life signs drop below what mankind could track, and then you came back. That's resurrection. Okay. I wonder if it actually does that. Let me just see something here. I'm curious of an interesting little option. When I look at the definite, oh, what does resurrection mean? The act or fact of bringing someone back to life or bringing something back into use or existence, aka the resurrection of his political career. In the Christian religion, the resurrection of Jesus Christ returned to life after his death. Okay. So, I mean, we are talking about something that stopped living, okay, and then redesigned their life. It was brought back to life. Now, that being said, okay, many of you and many people I've talked to that have had near-death experiences, that's literally what's happened. In my case, I've just made a life out of it. You know, I've lived long enough this time. I think I'll die again. Actually, I don't know if that's a conscious choice. Although it was conscious action that created some problem. But now I've shown you this figure before. Okay, this is not the one in question. This is the one in question. This is an absolute question for for likely, and if anybody else has an answer, that's great. But likely Chad, Nathan, and or World will have the best answer here. This critter, now when I bought it, it came complete with the wings attached. Now, I don't know the best ways. In order to take this figure and make it exactly what I'm looking for, I've got to modify it by removing the wings. Okay. What I would like to know is what the best way is of removing said wings. The only tool I've really got for it is a magnifying lens, which will take a little while, but can absolutely do it. Okay. What I don't know is what is the best and the most effective method to do it. Oh, you were working anyway. What I said, Nathan, was this figure was bought as is. But to modify this creature to what I require for the Yldrbac Chronicles, I've got to remove the wings. What I don't know is the best way, because if you take a look at it, you guys might already know it. When you take a look at it, the wing mounts are pretty thick. What I'm looking for is what's the easiest, or more to the point, the most effective way to remove the wings properly so that I can work with it. Now, the only tool I have at this point is this funny thing here, also known as a magnifying lens. It is, it's standard plastic. It's a standard D&D figurine, like figurine that you buy for Dungeons and Dragons. I forget what the actual creature is, but any one of the figures that you're looking at, they're all made out of a hard plastic. I don't honestly know what the actual material is, but definitely plastic. But I know I've got to modify it in order to get it to look like exactly what I'm aiming for. Now, I'm presuming, where are we here? Oh, okay. I happen to have both of those, so that works. Yeah, because it's a pretty solid mount. Painting it I can do. Maybe not exactly the way I'd like, but I may end up having to go and buy a new one of these to do it. Because this little guy is a nasty little critter. But what I'm taking to is getting the figures I've got, deciding who they represent in the stories, and starting to paint them accordingly. It makes it so much easier to write them, or more to the point, to choreograph. But again, what I'm doing is centuries back, and we are talking, well, in this case, we're talking millennia back. 40,000, 50,000 years ago, I was a budding artist. Okay. Now, there is no way I'm going to take the time to get to that level. Not a problem there, Nathan. Thanks so much for coming back in to answer. I really do appreciate it. 50,000 years ago, I was a decent artist. Quite honestly, about 1,500 years ago, I was a really good one too. This lifetime, I haven't taken the time for it. Okay. But one thing that I will tell you, yes, you get reincarnated into a new life, but you don't forget what was in the old life. So you do have the option of looking back and remembering what talents you had, what skills you had, and for that matter, when you take a look at it. Okay. And I've talked to some of you guys about this. This funny little book here, The Ephemeris. When I learned astrology, it was taught to me a very simple issue. Okay. The astrology I was taught literally tells you, it's essentially a report card from your last life. You're born into this life with these talents, these strengths, these weaknesses. It's up to you what you do with them. For instance, let's say you're born with a natural capacity to positively influence people, to influence people with the simple weight of your words. It's up to you whether you encourage people to be decent or you incite people into riots. Now, Ferret's going, how do you know about your past lives? Is that what the Akashic records are? The answer to that question, Ferret, first and foremost, is yes, that is literally what the Akashic records are. They don't track your physical life. The Akashic records follow your soul's issues, and they span over however many lifetimes. Now, some people, such as myself, can go straight to them and look them up ourselves. Other people rely on seers, on clairvoyants, on people that have learned how to access them, and therefore they go and look them up. Oh, that is terrible there, Black. Black goes, I wrote a short story when I was younger. I wrote over 2,300 pages on my computer. Then lightning fried my system. You do realize 2,300 pages is not a short story. Just for edification there. Okay. I mean, 2,300 pages. Let me just call this up. We go to that book there. When I look at the Yldrbac Chronicles, which I'm currently writing, go to main, scroll all the way to the top, and right now in the entire story, Okay, the entire story that I've only got 1,600 pages written. Okay, out of all of it. But that I am working on. You know, the deep part about it is there's a lot of issue around, when we start looking at stories, and this is the thing. When I was talking to somebody today, we got looking at it and going, okay, you gotta pick a direction, you gotta narrow things down, right? And what I've decided is I'm going to put my focus into science fiction, science fantasy, but I will deal with almost all genres. Just simply to give a place to start. But there is so much that we've got to look at. One thing I will tell you, most of you have some sort of a goal or some sort of a life achievement you were aiming for that you thought about doing when you were a kid. Okay, it is not too late to make that happen, but it may be too late to make it happen by a given year. Okay, so now is the time to really take a look at the way your life is going. Okay, and go, okay, now your life has hit a point where you're now questioning, where do I go from here? How do I know this? Because frankly, what I've been focusing on for the last 2 years is going, are you content with your life? And how do we change it into something that you're more content with? Okay, that's the whole gamut. Okay, now, yes, I am transforming my own life. And this is why I say, when I'm talking about being a spiritual guide, I'm a firm believer that as a spiritual guide, you should be following your own teachings. In my case, that is literally what I'm doing. Oh, you do realize, Black Dragon, that is, just to put everybody's mind at ease, the Apple IIe was the one I first the first computer I ever saw, which was back in 1979-ish. So we're talking an Apple II. We're talking about something that is like 50-year-old computer. The odds are number one, you didn't have a hard drive. That'd be the first problem. Okay, because back then it was all done on floppies. And I'll tell you, with the programs today, you'd be looking at a stack of floppies like this deep. Just just to get the paper, never mind the program. Just to get the writing down. Emmy, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Yeah, I know, bad for my health, but hey, what the heck? Think of it this way. If I drop dead, you won't have to pay attention to me anymore. Unless I decide to come and haunt you. But it really is time to look at it. Now, resurrection is the easy thing because you don't have to reorient yourself and figure out where you're standing. You simply have to look at where your life is. What are you going to do with it? Okay, you're at that crossroads right here, right now. Okay, the question is, are you going to continue on the path you're on? Or are you going to start changing it to something more enjoyable from your end? This is just the reality behind life. We have to make that kind of a choice. No, at this point, I've still got a couple of people left to annoy. But thank you very much there, Emmy. Well, I will take your word for it there, Ferret. Absolutely. Quite honestly, I remember it was an Apple IIe. We had 3 of them in the entire school, and they weren't in the office. We had a computer lab that we got into. Nicely done there, Nathan. Nathan goes, okay, most tasks done, and it's almost my lunchtime. My tasks are nowhere near done, but it is getting on supper time. The neat little part, by the way, Nathan, just to put that in perspective, I'm debating whether or not to share this one off for I think I'll probably go out tomorrow and buy another one that I can modify. Because this critter without the wings is something that is going to be really plays a definitive role in the Yldrbacian Chronicles. I don't actually know if I've got a name for it yet. But like I said, I'm using the figures to give physical form to what I'm doing. And yes, world and shadow, this means I am going to be looking at building small dioramas as well, which is half the reason I'm getting rid of some of my stuff. To make enough room for it. Like I don't draw. Maybe one day I'll go back to it. I've tried a little bit, but actually I wonder. I'll figure out that tomorrow. Yeah, Ferret. That was the first computer I owned as well. I just forgot it was a Tandy. I remember it being called a TRS-80. It was and the one I had was a tape-driven, which might give you an idea of just how old it was. But in your case, apparently you remember. Okay, my brother had a Texas Instrument one. I forget what it was called, but it was definitely a Texas Instruments. Okay, but at that time, I could understand the whole concept of building a basic computer program, as in line such and such, go to such and such, return such and such. I've forgotten a lot of that, but then I never actually took a course in it. Now I'm far more comfortable with a biomagnetic flux holographic interface. Needless to say, you don't find those on Earth very well. Funny thing there, Ferret, is I use that same process when modifying the way my world's going. Okay, when I talk about changing the way your world is, I mean literally doing it one step at a time. Okay, and it really does boil down to making it happen. Now, I don't remember everything because I lost track of which day it was. I thought today I started off thinking today was Wednesday. It wasn't until afternoon, after my appointment on Tuesday, that I found out that today was Tuesday, which gives you an idea how well my day went. But one thing we all have to keep in mind, whether we're talking about people that are born, straight humans, and I do mean that as impure humans, or as close to it as we get. I hate that that I'm somewhat drawn to explain that. But humans, half-breeds, where we are talking about natural conception, hybrids, which are vat jobs, vat babies, which are literally engineered, aliens, doesn't matter. Every one of you that is alive and hearing this is in the exact same boat. This planet is the one that we have to really take a look at and start working with, regardless of how you got to where you are. Okay, and rest assured, whether you see yourself as fiscally more superior to people, doesn't mean you personally are. I've seen so many people with a staggering amount of money that treat the people around them like absolute garbage This is not a superior person. This is a child throwing a temper tantrum. Okay, or going, hey, look at me, I'm so special because I've got more money than you got. Problem is, money doesn't buy happiness. Though, as I was told, it does help you look for it in a lot more places. You know, it's fascinating. I'm sitting here and I'm still looking at, and see, we're still sitting in the high 90s as far as the States is concerned. 37 here in Canada. Okay, and here we are at 6 o'clock at night. Where are we? Yeah, and of course, let's not forget the Commodores. Oh, yeah, absolutely, Nathan. I knew a chap, he goes, you know, I've been miserable rich and I've been miserable poor. Hands down, I would rather be miserable rich. Myself, I just rather not be miserable. Thanks very much for the offer. But this is one of the things I have to read that I had to come to terms with. Yes, I like my luxuries. I certainly do. But I'm also a firm believer that helping other. Oh, you can definitely be too thin, Ferret. There are definitely cases where you can be too thin. If you're so thin that your health is suffering, your energy levels are down, you're always cold. Oh, okay. Now, I do agree with you. Being too rich, it's not the money that makes the problem. It's the attitude towards the money that causes the problem. Raven, how you doing? Glad you could join us. You know, I've met people that have millions of dollars and are the most self-centered individuals I've ever run into. And I've run into people that are millionaires and absolutely a dream to deal with. What is today? Oh, I think we already checked that. I think that still said today was Tuesday. Yep, I got good memory. That's obvious. But now is the time to really start looking at things. And what I'm doing now is I'm starting to, and as a matter of fact, I'll be starting looking tonight to really start getting on to shows to absolutely discuss what my writings are and push that side of generating an income. I should have done it months ago. Okay. But tonight, after I get done the stream, I'm literally going to start posting to see if I can generate some sort of interest on that side. Because the reality is, the best books, the best tools in the world are absolutely useless if nobody finds out about them. You know, so I'm going to go down that road instead while I'm building everything else. And hopefully temperature will come down a little here, but I'm not holding my breath. Raven goes, is it really a reincarnation machine on the backside of the moon? Reincarnation? No. But there is a resurrection. Okay. There is a machine that will bring the supposed dead back to life. And I don't mean zombie apocalypse style. But no, they do not have, that I've ever borne witness to, they don't have a reincarnation on the reincarnation machine. Okay. Raven. No. Chad. I will tell you this, I stumbled across it by accident. If you enjoyed the Matrix movies, the Matrix trilogy, then absolutely Matrix Resurrections on Netflix is definitely worth the watch. In my opinion, anyway. Matter of fact, quite frankly, I was looking at watching it again tonight. I watched the other day quite by accident. Well, more to the point, I stumbled across it by accident. See, now here's the thing. Start, first of all, a reincarnation machine. Well, there you go. Now you got like 8 hours of movies to watch. Actually, yeah, I think they're all roughly 2 hours long. So that gives you lots to work with. Okay. No, reincarnation is not a trap. And by the way, if they're true starseeds, they're not talking about reincarnation being a trap. They know better. Okay. Reincarnation itself, saying it's a trap is kind of like going, if you're driving a Ford today and your Ford breaks down, you're not allowed to go and buy a Toyota because that's a trap. No, it's another vehicle. Yeah, we had a Commodore 20 and a Commodore 64. Or more to the point, my parents did. Well, let's face it. There are positive and there are negative forms of every race. Like I said, you cannot look at one race and go, and say that whole race is good or that whole race is bad. Okay, there are some starseeds that come from a black background and finally turn around and went, wait a minute, I know what my heritage is. But the old saying, you're known by the company you keep, okay, does have a lot of truth to it. Yep. We had my brother, you got to remember, my older brother was an absolute computer geek. Derek, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Now, am I supposed to take offense to being called an errant? Because I usually miss it when people insult me. But hey, what the heck? Although the knight errants were another issue. They should have been called the knight arrogants. But I think that's a different issue altogether, too. Yeah, likelihood that's probably right. When you mention it that way there, Nathan, the Commodore VIC-20, absolutely. From my standpoint, it didn't really make a lot of difference. It couldn't make the thing work properly anyway. I also used to run an 8088. Now, that was a weird machine. But when we're talking, like I said, resurrection itself boils down to life or a project or whatever gets brought to a halt and stopped. And then it gets resurrected. It gets to start over, still with all the same memories and a few enhanced ones, but still the exact same vehicle. Okay, you could say with some of the mechanics out there, you take an old 57 Chevy rust bucket, right? Polish it up, clean it up, correct, remove the rust, replace the necessary parts, or just clean. Let's say all you gotta do is break the rust out. You're resurrecting that 57. Oh, come on, Black. You were long gone before the cradles came in, weren't you? I know that's what my brother used to tell me. But yes, I do remember the cradle modems. The first modem I actually had, my brother had a cradle modem. The first one I had was a baud 12. I mean, it was dial-up. But today's world has the same thing. We've got so much technology. We take a look at this. This was the stuff of Star Trek. Okay, now it is real. Now you take a look at that, and you take a look at the technology coming out today, or the concepts coming out today. In 50 years, people are going to look at this going, well, how did you function with that? How did you possibly compensate? From my standpoint, I've been way behind the 8 ball in most things. Still am behind the 8 ball on a lot of it. This is why my son will still look at me. He'll say, we'll see something on TV, and he'll be looking. He'll just be killing himself laughing. I'm sitting there looking at him, and he's going, "Dad, that's funny." I'm like, "Okay," but unfortunately, it doesn't work as well for me as some people might think. Oh, that reminds me. While I'm thinking about it, like I said, I do have this funny habit of trying to make absolutely certain that I stay on top of things. So I have to do this. What I was writing down there is I got a call while I was out at the grocery store today. An old client of mine is looking for a little bit of guidance. So I just want to make sure I wrote it down so I didn't forget about it, which was kind of important. At least in my eyes, it was. Yeah. Fair goes, my dad and I connected our TRS-80 to his ham radio and transmitted. Received analog photos, then printed them on a printer. Good times. You know, if I could get a standard printer to work properly, I'd be happy. You know, all of this, all the technological hopping about, not my strong suit. You know, I mean, just the other day, this thing on an update decided to lock me out of FaceTime. You know, lock me out of FaceTime, out of texting, and out of receiving phone calls. You know, fortunately, my other half, though she's blind, walked through it. We had the thing sorted out in a matter of minutes. I do appreciate that there, Chad. And Chad, why do I not have you listed there? That is really terrible. That was just a thinking process on my part. You know, one of the things one of the really important things from my standpoint is this. We have an incredible opportunity here to really take a look at this world and make it into something phenomenal. You know, we really do. The question is, are you going to focus on making it a phenomenal world, or are you going to keep listening to people telling you the world is dying? You know, the world will die in 5 billion years or so. Either that or it'll evolve. You know, one thing I have found is funnier than heck to watch. I watched one quite literally millennia ago. I watched a young lass. She was a Gaboran. She'd been in the same orbit forever and a day, right? And as she got a little older, she finally got this thing that the gamers call wanderlust. I think there are some human tribes that call it that. Well, one thing led to another, and she ended up breaking free of orbit and went off to see the rest of the world. You know, the rest of the universe. You know, eventually she found another community, settled into the orbit, and stayed put. You know, so yes, even with galaxies where we have all these planets that humans see as stable, you're more than welcome there, Chad. You know, most people when they say they're blue, they mean they're sad. They used to mean they were sad. But no, yeah, you know, it's the least I can. Well, the least I could have done was leave it the same. Yeah, sad or cold. I know. I remember one day in a mountain lake, we went into the Comox Lake on the island in early May, I think it was. But we went off the dock into the water, and I'll tell you, number one, it was cold. It was a mountain lake, right? And it was cold. As a matter of fact, in your case, if I recall, Ferret, yeah, Well, we didn't realize that, or at least I didn't. But all of us boys went out off the edge of the dock. It was called, when I was there, it was called Comox Lake or Cumberland Lake, depending. But it was a feed for, it was a feed for the Kelowna Valley, for the Comox Valley. But we hit the water, and I'll tell you, by the time you struggled to shore, you were almost blue. My older brother was blue, about the same color as the blue that's in the chat room now. But again, when we take a look at the technology that is available, oh heavens, absolutely, Black. You realize that this computer, like these cell phones, as a matter of fact, the electronic watches that people have are more powerful than the original Cray back in the 1930s, I think. Could be wrong on the year. Yeah, absolutely there, Chad. And the funny part about it, I loved what Bill Gates said one day. He goes, the most incredibly stupid comment I ever made was when I said nobody will ever need more than 64 megabytes of RAM. Ever. And I'm like, and now he's looking at it going like, doesn't work. Yeah, it was absolutely more powerful than on the Apollo. But I will tell you, they have nothing compared to the computers on the backside of the moon. I mean, today's technology is phenomenal, but the thing you got to remember is this is a far more powerful machine than anything in existence, at least on this world. Absolutely more powerful than anything that is man-made. Man keeps trying to play God. It doesn't work well. I do hate hiccups. They're painful for me. But when we're talking about, like I said, resurrection literally boils down to bring your life out of the closet. Bring your life back on track and start making it hands. Now, I'm going to throw a wrench into that there, Chad. Chad goes, great minds think alike. And it's absolutely correct. The flip side of that, though, is that simple minds seldom differ. Yeah, Farrah goes, today's programming style is super inefficient. In the day, you had to make your code mean it. No wasted cycles. Yes, you do. And obviously, Chad, you remember those commercials. You got the power. I mean, the fact of the matter is, we have been taught over the last 50 years to go, I can't do anything without technology. I can't do anything unless I've been told exactly to go and do it. Derek's going, the new Doctor Strange Part 3 movie is going to be called Dimension of Darkness. I gotta watch that. He's always twisted. Ferris says, so we are cell technology. No. You are not cell technology or alien based. Okay, and I know there's a whole pile of argument around it, but from my understanding, number one, mankind was built here. Okay, technically by another race, but, well, literally by another race. But at that point, they were locals. Okay, and this is the thing you got to remember. YouTube University, how you doing? Glad you could join us. But no, when we take a look at it, okay, humans are at this point a naturally evolving species. We are certainly getting more aware of our higher senses, but that's natural evolution and exploration. And you'll notice the more that the religious and that the religious people are saying, "Oh, don't go there. It's evil going there." And I get a kick out of it, and it boggles my mind. They'll sit there and go, "That's all evil. God created everything, but those higher senses are evil." Well, who created the higher senses? But mankind is, mentally speaking, evolving. Okay. And it's just a question of, are we going to take our newfound senses and push them further and make them work more efficiently for society or even for ourselves without walking on other people? Or are we going to continue to hurt other people, which seems to be what we're being taught? Okay, from my standpoint, it really boils down to an issue of, now is the time to change things. I am curious because that just caught my attention. Where is book 10? 11367. Oh, we have been adding to it quite nicely. That's bonus. I hate when I do that. I get a thought in my head, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, gotta go and deal with that. Okay, we'll deal with that afterwards. But, okay, when we look at it, resurrection, like I said, in a nutshell, your body stops and all motion, all life signs drop below the trackable methods of current man. That's when you've died. With regards to resurrection, your body simply restarts. Okay, forced resurrection is when your body drops that far, and then some genius goes and grabs a set of paddles and electrocutes you to bring you back to restart your heart. This is a forced resurrection. Now, I will tell you, it's easy enough to do that by taking that energy, and this is what I pulled off with my former father-in-law. That energy you feel between your hands, okay, that is your biomagnetic flux. Okay, and it's that issue that turns around and is what I utilized to light the way for my former father-in-law to come back from a 6-week coma. I love this much as I agree on the whole there, Black Dragon, there are some cases of programming that have been phenomenal. Like, I don't know if you're aware of it, but back when the Lord of the Rings came out, thing was the Lord of the Rings. When the Uruk-hai were coming down off the mountain towards all the hordes of orcs, when they were coming down, the orcs, there were only 8 orcs that were actually actors. And they were supposed to stand there and beat their chests and what have you. But the programmer that was building the program for the computer generated was building the computer, the program, so the orcs would act in a normal fashion. So here you have, when they first wrote the coding, here you have the Rohirrim coming down over the hill on horseback towards the Uruk-hai. Well, the 8 actors are standing there beating their chests with their arms and shouting and what have you. The entirety of the CGI program turned around and bolted. They had to go back in and downgrade the program. They did a phenomenal job on programming it, but it was a bit counterproductive for the storyline. I mean, my brother was a programmer like few other. I remember my brother built a virus scanner that if his personal computer ever got hit, his virus scanner would track down the computer that literally like the computer that the virus was built on, or the computers, because some of the virus builders build them on 2 or 3 different computers. Well, my brother's program would hunt down each of the offending computers and burn the hard drive, or not the hard drive, burn the motherboard, just cook the entire system. Now, my brother was a little different. So I mean, in all fairness, like there are always good and bad people in every walk of life. In my case, yes, I call myself a spiritual guide. I will never call myself an expert, primarily because my brother identified an expert as an unknown drip under pressure. And yes, I'm unknown. And yes, on occasion I drip. Usually that boils down to I missed my face. But now I'm looking at the world going, okay, let's build an empire that is usable. Let's build one that encourages people to work together. Okay, so am I resurrecting an old dream? Yeah, but this time I'm pushing it to the limit, with or without help. Okay, and absolutely I'm going to push the limits. Okay, I've got ideas in my own head on how to do it. I just have to figure out how to make it work. With this in mind, okay, I will keep you posted on that one, that's for certain. But if you guys, I would love to hear programs or goals that you guys have that you're working on. I've got a couple of goals that I know of that you guys have on the go that I would love to see come to fruition. Okay, this is just the way I look at the world. Now, we're down the last couple of minutes here because, like I said, I'm usually here for just a couple hours unless I end up caught up with a question. But, and again, if you didn't get a question asked, many of you forget to ask questions because you're listening to something else, or maybe you think the question isn't important or we're not on the right topic. Well, the reality is, in my world, there is no right topic. Okay, so if I'm talking about something you got a question, even if it comes out of left field, absolutely come out and ask it. If I can give you an answer, I will. Otherwise, I'll tell you, don't know. Okay, that said, tomorrow, I've already got it marked down here. Tomorrow we are going to be, where are we? Tomorrow's the 16th. Oh, would you look at that? Looks like we're making a minor modification here. Because I'm still going to bring out the characters and what have you. That's the easy part. The first alien craft that I ended up on, I honestly didn't see much of it. I was only 3 years old ish. I was taken by the Talon. Okay. And that was where I ran into the real big problem. But the Talon ships, they're kind of, and I'm going to see if I've actually got it written down properly here. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I've got it here. I don't think I've got the picture for it anyway. Where are we? Nope. Just so I don't put my foot in my mouth. There it is. Tell you, it was quite some time back. That's what I thought. Okay. You may have seen these guys. Yeah, okay. The first ship I was on was a Talon ship. Okay. And it would be, now I can't give you an idea of the size of the thing. I can tell you it was larger than a standard saucer, but it was an oval, the overall body was an oval shape. was sort of an oval shape, but oval, yeah. But the legs, when it landed on legs, so of course, when its idea when they brought it down, it would land with 6 legs, maybe 8. Okay, and like I said, I was inside, and I just found out about some of this afterwards. But the mothership is an oval ship. The landing ships are rounder ones. Okay, but if have you ever seen over in the sky above you? Have you ever seen a ship where you saw lights coming from above the sky, but lots of different colored lights also running in a cyclic pattern below it? Whoops, Derek. Oh, okay. Thank you so much for bringing that there, Derek. I've actually got the thing installed, so that would have worked well. But when I was looking at that whole issue, okay, that was the tail arms. Those were the same people that snapped my arm just to find out how much strength it was going to take. How much tension it was going to take. Now, that would be and unfortunately, Derek, I did. But I'll get to that in about 10 seconds here. But that was the first ship I was born on. The neat that I was on. The neat thing about those is they're little landing pods. Okay. When you've got... This is the easiest way to do it. If you take a look at the landing pods, they're atmospheric ones. They look similar to that. But what it is they have legs like this, sort of, and forgive the fingers, they don't go everywhere they should. You need them. But you've got the ship with the land, but when they go to land, the legs fold up over top of it so they can drop into the water. And the armored legs will actually take the impact. Okay. This is why it works the way it does. But that was the Talon ship. Now, we go back down to Derek here. No, go back up to Derek. Sorry. Number one, I will tell you this: there are people below Greenland. Okay, there's quite a number of them underneath Greenland in an underwater cavern. Okay, but you aren't getting to the underwater cavern by going in through the side of Greenland. You've actually got to go out into the ocean a piece. And no, not going to tell you where. Sorry. First of all, they don't need unnecessary company. Okay. But I will tell you, there are a number of seaborne races down there that utilize that as a muster point almost, as well as a number of ancient races. Nope, don't want to do that. Now, let us just scroll down here. Absolutely agree there, Black Dragon. And yes, Ferret, number one, Black Dragon, I agree. Most programmers are taught this is how you program, do this and this and this. Very few actually think outside the box and are creative programmers. My brother was bizarre. Okay, myself, I couldn't program if you paid me to right now, although I could. Possible. Let me put it this way. Now, Black Dragon, let me ask you this. First of all, did you grow up in Comox? Because there's only a couple places you could have met him. Okay. Because he was more reclusive than I am. But we grew up in Comox. He went to Victoria to go to university. He went to University of Victoria. And then he went to Calgary. which is where he spent the last 50 years of his life-ish. For the last 40 years, he was 64, got there. Guess me, the last 40 years was there. And yeah, yeah, Black Dragon, you're absolutely right. Trolls, gnomes, and elves absolutely are. Okay, well, in all fairness, the elfin race was the first actual sentient race that was created on Earth. And there's a whole lot of thing around that. Here's the neat part about it. We talk about that here, and this is where it gets to be a question. You get to figure out which came first, the chicken or the egg. Okay. Now, we talk a lot about a lot of different races. Okay. And yes, I do have the races of the world, which covers 59 different races I've personally dealt with. But when we take a look at this, okay, this is just an encyclopedia. It literally gives you data. Inside these pages, you'll run into a number of the races that are in the races of the world, but you get to see them in the terms of their social interaction. Now, with that all said, we are well over the 2-hour mark. Well over. We're only 5 minutes over. But that said, I'm going to have to call it night here. I'm going to thank you very much for sharing your time with me. I will be back again tomorrow. Okay, but tomorrow we will be talking about a lot of the different figures I've been dealing with and the medical side of things. I think we'll end up combining the two. But until then, I do wish to say thank you so much for sharing your time with me. And until we meet again, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.